From derelict and disordered Denver, Colorado, welcome to Disaffected, the show where we talk about politics, culture, and relationships through a psychological lens. And let me ask you, yeah, this is George. I'll introduce him in a second. You know who he is. Some of you do. Um, I'm on vacation, which is why this is home style. I'm actually in Denver, and George is my dearest friend from college. Um, and we want to talk about, well, actually, the first thing I want to ask you guys when I open the show and I say through a psychological lens, it's starting to irritate me. Does it irritate you? Does it's like saying like something's through a lens? Does that sound too woke? Should I move it to something like from a psychological perspective or a psychological point of view? Um, Write me a new intro if you want. Leave it in the comments under the video. Tell me what you think about lens. I'll tell you what I think about lenses. I should not have brought my glasses because some of the things I saw in Denver today, I swear to God. Girl, this place is retarded. It was horrible. So let's just start out talking about how stupid Denver is.
It pains me that it's gotten so stupid. It's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful
It
setting.
is.
Um,
You can just look outside. The Rocky Mountains are all around you.
yeah, it's gorgeous, and the weather here throughout the year, even though we get 4 seasons, but it's we get tons of sun.
Yep.
It's just such a beautiful place to live, and there's so many recreational and there's theater. There's so many things to do, like any city, right? I mean,
Hmm.
the things that drive people to cities are all here. But like most liberal bastions across the country nowadays, it's just on a fast train to hell.
It's all a it's tough. If you haven't been to Denver, the airport here is it's enormous. It's bigger than many towns in New England. Literally, the landmass is much bigger than many cities and towns in New England. It is the most sprawling, unbelievable thing. And to get from where you get on the plane and get off the plane to the main terminal to ticketing to baggage claim, you have to take an underground train. Now, it's been what, 10 years since I've been here? About
Yeah, it's been
about 10
10
years.
years. Yeah,
I've
it's
been
been
here
a
several
while.
times before, but it's been about 10 years. They have not changed the musical cues on the automated electric train. So you get on this stupid train. I didn't want Kevin to have to beep. There's this little guitar riff. Welcome to Denver. And I'm like,
Wait, yeah, a train is arriving.
I know. Stand back. The train is departing. And then, yeah, it's either the doodly doo or it's somebody on a goddamn honky tonk piano going, do 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 do, and then your cuck mayor, what's his name? Somebody Johnston. What's his? Is it David
It's
or
Mike Johnston.
Mike Johnston? Hi, I'm Denver Mayor Mike Johnston. Welcome to Denver. And blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh my God. I just got off at 777 with 385 other people. Can you shut your pie hole? No. Oh my God. Yeah. All right. So enough complaining about airports.
Before you go on, I actually like our airport. I think our airport's really nice.
He has to say that because his husband works for the airport.
I do not
Yes,
have
it
to
is.
say
Yes,
that.
you do.
No, I
Hey, you like our airport? Nobody likes airports.
I
No one likes airports, George.
know, but have you been to other airports in the United States? They're hideous.
They're all hideous.
Yeah, but this one's nice hideous.
What's nice about it?
It's sprawling, it's new-ish. It's not a hodgepodge of different things.
See, I'm spoiled because the only real airport in Vermont is the Burlington Airport, excuse me, the Burlington International Airport. Do you know why it is international? Because there are flights to another country called Canada.
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 Bitch, I can get in my car and literally drive 35 minutes and be in Canada. I do not need an international airport to go to Canada. Just put the airport in Canada.
Right, exactly. Just move the border.
Oh, oh, we can talk about that.
Whoops. Did I speak it too soon?
Yeah. It's a good thing this is unscripted. The border, seriously, there I saw news coverage a couple weeks ago of the northern border in Vermont. There's a long stretch of the northern border that goes from New York State across the top of Vermont and across New Hampshire, and it's called the Swanton sector.
Okay.
Um, because the center of it is Swanton, Vermont, which is
Oh, okay. I
right
was like,
on. I must have a house in
Mr.
Swanton.
Mrs. Swanton?
It's Mrs. Swanton.
I don't know.
No,
I
I don't
just
know. At any rate, there are people living up there on the Vermont side. They are actually seeing illegal aliens now. This almost never happened up here.
what from where?
That's the thing. It's weird because they look like they're Central or South Americans.
Oh, okay. They're not wearing toques.
No, and they're not very alpine.
They're not coming down and being like, "We're home."
Oh, can we come in your house?
Right.
My what? Excuse me, sir.
Are you acquainted with my husband?
Oh,
Shall I call the police?
they're called moose. Hoos.
Who's
Anyway, yeah, we're actually getting that up here. Oh, so let's get back to Denver.
up there?
Hush. Um, so we're driving. We go to have breakfast this morning. Delicious breakfast. But Denver is a city that is becoming wokeified, like every other Democrat-led city. And what you were pointing out to me, they've got the rainbow crosswalks going on, just like in Burlington, just like in many other cities.
Yes.
Have you yet had somebody who burned their tires out so that the local news can say police are investigating a hate crime
No.
against a crosswalk?
We, we need to talk about the crosswalk community. Crosswalks are oppressed throughout this nation. No, we haven't had anything like that happen, and I'm surprised we haven't because
Yeah, I am too.
you know,
Because your city is really getting
oh yeah,
like that.
oh yeah, it is. It's not as far gone as Portland or Seattle, or San Francisco or any of those places, but it's absolutely on a fast track there.
Well, you've got this huge influx of
Newcomers.
newcomers. Yeah, you guys, we talked about that on the show recently. You know how the White House is shifting its language. We've gone from uh, first immigrants was okay, and then after a couple months, immigrants was not okay.
Right.
Then it became migrants, which both you and I find there's something offensively disingenuous about that. No, a migrant is somebody who actually migrates from one place to another through some sort of official channel. These people are just border jumpers that we're talking about.
Well, and this is the thing, like everything nowadays, we've attached emotion and we've attached identities
Hmm.
to these words, right? So we can no longer talk about, we can no longer, or we're told we can no longer use the words like illegal alien or
Hmm.
illegal immigrant because that's passing a judgment. And it's like, um, it's telling a truth. And it's it's not one way or the other. It's just a fact, right?
But facts are offensive.
It's so ridiculous. It's like it's just a description of what's actually happening. Whether you like it or not, that is what's happening.
It is what's happening, but it's also you know that when people have that response when they say no human being is illegal, that's factually not true.
Right.
That's not true. It is in
Right.
fact illegal. Crossing the border without going through proper channels is by definition illegal. It's in the federal code.
Correct.
Uh,
Well, and how can you have, I mean, the definition of you can't have a country without a border. There's no
Yep.
such thing, right? I mean, so the idea that we're supposed to get rid of all borders, and that doesn't even make sense
No, it doesn't. Well, it's like how we were
from a
talking.
sovereign perspective. I mean, it's
Don't
ridiculous.
say that word.
But
Do you mean sovereign citizens? Do you mean QAnon? I know. Oh my God. Well, it's like what we were talking about at breakfast this morning. Um, you can't. Okay, so people who say, "Well, we shouldn't have any borders," we should just open the border. Have you noticed how we've gotten nudged? And this is a process of nudging. Which is why it irritates me. I mean, obviously, almost everything irritates me, but this especially irritates me.
yes,
I don't like nudging because nudging is indirect. It's in the same family of moves that we call passive aggressive. It's covert, it's indirect. There's an implied judgment, there's a
mm,
moral judgment there. Wouldn't you like to do this? No, I would not like to do that, right? But we've all been nudged into this idea that having a boundary, closing a door, closing a fence, building a wall, having a perimeter that actually defines what is mine or ours and what is yours and someone else's, that the very act of having that boundary is an immoral act.
correct.
Is it immoral to lock your front door in the house that you own?
Right.
Are you morally obligated to invite every single person who walks down your street who's homeless into your home? If you have dinner on your table, are you committing an immoral act unless you bring that food out to anyone who happens to be walking by on the street? Well, I was going to say nobody would say that, but with some of these progressives these days, I think they might actually say, yes, you are
Oh, I
immoral.
think that's absolutely correct. I mean,
But it's insane, though,
yes,
right?
yes, of
I mean, we're
course.
questioning the most basic, non controversial things like this is my house, not your house. Uh, you know, I
Right.
I physically secure my home when I sleep at night.
Yes.
Like all these normal things are all of a sudden becoming like, is that a good look?
Are you sure that's your house? I mean, isn't it our house?
No, it's not.
But that's where we're going. I mean, it's community,
Community. Yeah. No,
right?
no, it isn't.
No, it's
Well,
yeah.
it's like that aggressive panhandler at the
Oh
intersection this
yeah.
morning. She's standing out there with a sign. I don't remember what it said, but it ended with Jesus loves or, some stuff like that. And she's like, we've got panhandlers at most intersections in Vermont now, but this lady comes right up to your window. She walks up, hello, hi. Did she knock on the
She
window or?
didn't, but I was
Okay.
expecting her
I
to
thought
because
she was because she got right up there.
she was right there, yeah,
Oh my God.
next to Clay, and it was like,
So what did I hear? What did I hear recently about your mayor having to close down some of the facilities that are housing the newcomers? We were talking about this.
so the mayor was working.
Cheers, darling.
Oh yes, cheers. The mayor was working very well. He was working to get uh, uh, the bipartisan bill.
Oh, the federal
Yes,
bill?
the federal bill.
The one that was going to shut the border by allowing 5,000 aliens in every day?
Correct. Yes, that was
Because
yes.
that's shutting the
That's
border.
shutting the border. Right. Leaving it open is now closed.
Open! Closed.
yes. Again, open, close. Yeah.
It's like Sesame Street, but
Yes.
backwards.
Yes.
Abierto cerrado.
Except now it's abierto.
Cerrado.
It's Spanish.
Let's just do
So
Sesame Street all
yeah.
backwards. We'll have Grover in the restaurant with a perfectly clean bowl of soup. Waiter, there's a fly. No,
There's no
there's no fly in my soup. Yes, there is. And you see a bowl of nothing but flies. There's no fly in my soup.
no, they come in and bring a giant fly. And like raise the table.
With a grind, like the Parmesan grinder. Why don't you like some fresh fly? I got a wing.
Oh my
So
goodness.
he was working to get that horrendous.
That bill
I can't believe
passed.
the Republicans like Langford and who were there were
I don't
three of them.
remember. I don't
Was
remember.
John Thune one of them? I
I
don't
don't
remember.
honestly don't
Langford
remember.
was Jim Langford was one of them. I could not believe the Republicans actually backing this bill that would have allowed five. And then they went ahead and said, "No, it doesn't allow 5,000 people." And yeah, it did,
Yeah.
didn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Well, and all the people talking about, it was the perfect example of like, well, we know they're not going to pass it, so that when they don't pass it, they can turn around and be like, "See, we tried during an election year,
Yep.
we tried to close the border, but they wouldn't let us."
Or Joe Biden saying, uh, I'm waiting for the Republicans to do their part. Blah,
Right.
blah, blah. No, bitch, you know what an executive order is because that's the first goddamn thing you did on your first day of office was you wrote executive orders overturning Trump's ban on what was it? It was trans shit was the very first thing you did.
Yes.
It was I
Yes.
covered it on the show. I don't was it reversing the ruling that Title IX meant biological sex. I think
Yes.
that was the first thing he did in office.
Well, I realize we don't live in a dictatorship. I get that, but honestly, this is one of those things where all you have to do is go close the border.
Right.
I mean, I know it's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's how you get the ball rolling.
Yep. So your mayor has had to shut down. I read a couple of news stories about it in the past week. Is shutting down some of the shelters? Is it?
Yes, what he said is because we're not getting any federal funding in order to help with the influx of newcomers, we can
Newcomers.
no longer afford as the city to keep housing these people for long periods of time. So we're going to have to start closing down some of these. And so they've started closing some of them down and saying when you come in, you have X amount of time to stay, kind of a, yeah.
And there are other cities that are doing that too, and they're acting like some sort of human rights atrocity is is taking place here. I'm like, when? Give me a date. Give me a recent year and give me a date when you suddenly started believing that your city's job was to actually provide rent, a bed, food, transportation, and in some places, a working card
Hmm.
for border jumpers. When did you believe that that was in your city charter?
Well, in New York, money, the credit cards with money on them.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know how much it is, but it's like, here's money so
It's
that you.
about, well, New York City, if I remember correctly, the original reports about that were not correct. They were saying something like the estimate of how much was going to go on these debit cards for immigrants was way higher than it is. I think it's something like a little over $1,000 a month.
Mm.
Um, and they're trialing it, I think, with 500 families and change. And I'm like, why are you even?
Trialing it. What are you trialing to see?
Well, Eric Adams' answer to that was, well, this is going to be cheaper because we've been contracting with this company to provide so many 100,000 meals per day. And I'm like, no, let's get right to the root of it. Why are you providing meals?
Right.
Why are you providing meals? Why are you providing hotel rooms? Stop doing that.
Right.
Just stop doing that.
Right. Exactly.
But why is nobody saying this? I mean, I know that people on the right, some of them are saying it. Some of them aren't though. Some of them are acting like there's something we have to figure out here. George, you know what it reminds me of? It, I'll take a small linguistic example to illustrate this move. So Elon Musk buys Twitter
Mm.
sometime last year. Was it last year? I have no sense of time
Time.
anymore. Um, and decides he wants to call it X. I noticed people, the majority of people, immediately stop saying Twitter and start typing X. I saw it in news articles. I saw it in people on Twitter. Here's why that bothers me. It's different than it used to be. It used to be, it's the immediate compliance in the average American with a new branding. initiative.
Mm,
And branding is about changing perception, right?
yes.
There are legitimate uses of that technique. There are sneakier uses of that technique. The technology is neither good nor bad.
Right.
It's how it's used, right?
Right.
Um, you know, uh,
Being in marketing and
right.
communications myself, I know
Which
all
is
about
it's always
branding.
been a thing.
Right.
Before we
Yes.
called it marketing and communications, we called it public relations. Before
Yes.
that, we called it something else.
Right.
It's the same thing. Whatever. Everybody does it, right? We
Yes.
have branding for the show. We have colors and theme music and stuff like that.
Right.
But it used to be that if a major company or a major product was going to change its name, it would be a years long process. You'd
Yes.
get a company maybe on their headquarters, it would be the traditional sign Smith's hot dogs or whatever,
Right.
and then they'd add a division of ConAgra,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that would stay on there for 3 years, and then they drop hot dogs and it would be just Smith's, a division of ConAgra, and then it would be like ConAgra hot. I mean, I'm making this up out of my head, but
Formerly known as Smiths.
right? And
Or
this would
yeah.
go on for a couple of years, and then people would slowly adopt the new identity.
Yes. Yes. It would be a gradual shift.
Right now, it's instant. We are
Yes.
instantly compliant, and what bothers me about that is it signals a shift in state of mind.
Mm.
Right? We're ready to be told this isn't that thing anymore. It's this thing right now, just this minute. And oh, okay. Okay.
But isn't that is that a what's the word I'm thinking of? Is that a symptom or not a symptom or a has that come because of our the millisecond change of our digital age where
that has to be part
because
of it.
everything can happen so quickly, well, of course you can change your mind just as quickly. You can recognize things just as quickly.
Well,
If the computer can do it, why can't you?
ooh, that's a good point. That's a good point because you know how often I've written or talked about the fact that computer processes, actual devices like our phones
Right.
are no longer they are no longer designed for humans. We are expected to adapt
To the phone.
to the phone's physicality. Like,
Yes.
we're supposed to. Well, I'll complain about it again. I really dislike it when people apologize for misspelling text messages by saying, sorry, I have fat thumbs. No, you don't. You have human sized thumbs.
Right.
No, you don't have fat thumbs.
No.
You are not deficient before the computer.
The
The
keyboard.
designers are deficient. Do you see this? Look at the dimensions of this. Look at my hands,
Right.
right? There's a reason we have keyboards, right? I mean, fine, whatever, but we have internalized this.
Yes.
We are deficient because we are not designed to service what the phone wants us to do, or
Correct.
whatever device it is wants us to do.
Right. Yeah. This is designed well. We are not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, even it's down to like, I mean, I don't know if I've talked about this on the show before, but I definitely wrote about this on Substack, and you should subscribe to our Substack and support us. Um, I'll remind you later. Um, Kevin, can you put a ding sound effect in there, please? Thanks very much.
And a sparkle.
um, you know what? We'll do it this. Grab the receiver off that phone. You guys, check out George's. Look at this beautiful. Remember that telephone? The one on the wall? Okay, hold the receiver out. Okay, you see? Oh, we'll do it like this. This is an old school receiver that is actually designed to physically fit the human ear. Notice that it's about as round as the opening here, and it's cupped so that it seals out noise. It's not only physically comfortable on your ear, but it seals outside noise so that you can hear. So this is what phone receivers looked like from the 1930s until about the 90s.
Yes.
They hardly changed at all. Back here. It's like, stop moving everything around so much.
I know.
Um, Now look at this. a teeny tiny little slit on a hard edge that is made even harder because you have to have some sort of case to protect your phone from dropping. So this is supposed to be, oh, I know. Why don't you get AirPods? Why don't you blah, blah, blah? But that's the point. None of this stuff is designed for us.
Right.
Anyway, I think this reminds me of, it's part of the same dynamic that's going on that made people swallow trans as quickly as they did.
Well, I mean, we already have trans activists who say all the time, they're a better version of whatever sex they believe they are because they chose it.
Yep.
They made themselves into the woman that they should have been. I have the designer vagina. I mean, honestly,
Hmm.
these people exist and they
Yep.
say these things. They do actually believe that the manufactured version is better than what nature
Hmm.
came up with.
It's the idea of being the author of yourself,
Yes. Yes.
which, if you don't take it too far, is not necessarily wrong. You know, uh, investing in yourself, developing yourself, educating yourself, learning new skills, becoming more, you know, more aware of your emotions and your intellect and how they
Sure.
go together. All of these sorts of things are fine. But this, we're living in this era in which we deny that there's such a thing as human nature, first of
Yes.
all,
Yes.
right? And you and I were human nature deniers,
Oh yeah.
because we're progressive leftists, and
Correct.
that's what it's about.
Correct.
Um, but not only that we don't have a human nature, but that everything we are is a creation of ourselves. We are the author of everything we are, and it simply is not true. It's, Jordan Peterson has talked about this in terms of, he calls identity formation a social negotiation, and he's correct.
Yes.
They are, people, the most obvious example are trans activists, but there are other people with other identities, furries, or, you know, uh, I'm neurodivergent, whatever identity it is. Um, people, we now say that we have created our own identity all by ourselves. We're the
Right.
sole author,
Yes.
right? And I'm going to tell you who I am, and you are going to accept that this is who I am. And Peterson has gone on about this many, many times because it's completely at odds with how humans actually interact with each other. Our identities are a negotiation with other people.
Correct.
Other people have as much contribution to what we call our identity as we do. We don't have to like that.
Right.
It's just a description of how things work.
Well, their idea, it's a we don't live in vacuums.
Right.
We do inhabit a world with other sentient beings
Hmm.
with their own eyes, their own ears, their own senses, and their own perceptions, right? So you can't, it doesn't matter how many, you can cry and be upset about and tell people, no, you can't perceive me that way. You can only perceive me the way I tell you to perceive me. What?
Yeah. And I I feel an echo of the way I used to think,
Mm,
in that, think back to, well, let's talk about, we were talking about this in the car,
mm.
and we decided we wanted to come back to it when we recorded this. Talking about what we can expect from other people and what we demand of other people.
Mm,
Back when I was very young, and okay, so we're going to talk about it from a gay perspective, not, but because it's just an easy illustration. This,
because we're gay.
yeah, but it's very easy to see how looking at it that way, can be analogized to all of these identity
Sure.
things that are going on right now, because as much as a lot of gay people don't want this to be true and they get angry or upset when people say it, the fact is we we gays, just actual homosexuals, we weren't completely colonized from outside.
No.
We were.
Yes.
There have been a lot of interlopers, there have been a lot of cuckoos
Yes.
in the nest.
Yes.
And the cuckoo mothers are picking out the eggs, throwing them on the ground and replacing them. But we didn't guard our nest, first of all.
Correct.
And we did some of the groundwork that allowed this to happen.
Oh no, we openly said, "Come on in."
Yes, and not only that, but we started this you see me the way I want you to see me stuff a long time ago.
Yes.
So, just a personal example, when gay marriage wasn't legal, and I was a big proponent of gay marriage, right? Um, at this point in my life now, I may even change, I may change my mind again, but where I'm at with this right now is we should have we should have gone with civil unions and provided that any two people can make an economic and legal family unit, um, where you share responsibility for each other's
Mm-hmm.
finances. You
Mm-hmm.
get the doctor's call when the
Mm-hmm.
other person is in a car accident. You can make funeral arrangements. You can inherit money,
Right.
that kind of contractual relationship. And people will say, well, anybody could have done that before, which is technically true. But I've seen this from the inside, and I saw it with older male couples who were trying to do that in the years before there was anything like a civil union. The level of complication and the number of lawyers and the number of separate contracts that had to be brought together to do that was highly impractical.
It was
And
difficult.
and even when they were in place, they were often ignored in situations like medical extremis
Yes.
or death. So
Yes.
it was not as if you could just do it like that.
Those were real
They
issues.
were real
Yes.
issues. But that wasn't good enough for us, was it?
No.
We had to be married, and people had to say we were married.
Right.
And this is what I thought. I remember thinking things to myself very close to these words. I deserve my relationship to be seen by other people as on the same plane as any heterosexual relationship. That made sense to me. That kind of thing did it make sense to you
Absolutely.
when we were young?
Yes.
But think about that. It's incredibly, well, it's narcissistic, isn't it?
Yes.
Or
Absolutely.
it's at least, it's
I was
solipsistic
going to
to
say
an
it's
unrealistic
solipsistic.
degree,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Like, what gave us the idea that we had either the ethical right or the power to tell other people, perceive me the way I want you to perceive me, feel about me the way I wish you to feel about me? That's kind of cluster B.
Well, you know, and at the end of the day, what does it matter what somebody feels about me?
Well,
I
yes.
mean, I know where you're going.
Then go for
No,
it.
no, no.
Take it. Take
What
it.
I was going to say was, what does it matter what somebody feels about me if they're not hurting me? If I'm able to go to the store and not get, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And not get harassed,
Yep.
not do any of those things, which is, as you and I have said, what we wanted, or at least what we
Well, we
said
said
we
it
wanted.
isn't what we really wanted, though. I mean, we did. I say we loosely. There were people who disagreed with this. There were people to the right of me and people to the left of us. Um, but we wanted the branding. We wanted to force America to see us and have emotions about us that were just the same as anybody else out there, while at the same time insulting and denigrating straight people for
Yeah,
being straight
that
people.
is absolutely correct. Yes. And
It's
that is,
completely borderline,
yes,
you know?
yes, yes. I hate you. Don't leave me.
Yes,
Yes.
right?
I hate
How
you.
could it be more borderline than that?
I hate you, but you will respect me.
Right. I
What?
hate you and you will respect me and you will treat me as just as good as you. I'm just as good as you, but you're worse than me.
Right. But you're breeders. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
honestly, frankly, I think heterosexual people had a hell of a lot more patience for our antics as a group of people than I ever recognized before.
Well, I'm sure that, of course, not being heterosexual, I can't say for sure, but I'm sure there was a lot of
Yes. Well, I know there is now because do you remember from the show a couple of weeks ago when I read a really critical comment that a guy had left? He was really angry. He was angry with me,
Yes, yes.
right? That's a good illustration. Um, he was, and like I'm bringing this up as an illustration. The guy felt really sheepish. He left a comment on the next show, and he was like, "Oh, I shouldn't have gone off like that." I appreciated that, but I really meant it, and I mean it again now. I have been that direct and that blunt with people.
Mm.
It's really okay. You know,
You can take it.
I can take it, and also I absolutely understand why he felt that way. He was telling the truth about, I've been around this shit for decades while you guys were off. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but you guys were off prancing around about your equal rights, and guys like me were trying to hold the line against this creeping anti-white racism, creeping anti-heterosexual white guy
Where the hell
stuff.
have you
And
been?
you guys
Yeah.
were part of that. And
Yes.
we were,
Yes.
you know,
Absolutely.
Of course, people like that are going to be pissed.
Yeah.
Frankly,
Well, they have
we're lucky they talk to
well, and they
us.
have every right to be.
Yes.
It's 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 somewhat analogous to when the Americans showed up in Europe for World War II after it had been happening for how many years?
Right.
And they marched in and were like,
We're here.
yes, we're here. And it's like, where the hell have you been?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's we're running in being like, we're here to save everybody. Where have you been for the? Yeah, they have every right to be like,
Right.
I mean, it is what it is. I
Yep.
mean, we can't change that. They have every right to feel that way, and we should take it.
So the question is why did we want what we wanted? Why did we want people to feel about us the way we wanted them to feel about us? Well, insecurity.
Well, I was gonna say
Only insecure people, and
because I wanted to feel that way about myself.
yeah, yeah.
It's literally that simple. It goes back to something I've said to you a couple times now, Josh. In my awakening, right? I
Hmm.
hate to call it that,
Well,
but in my growth, in my change over the past several years, that started several years ago with an incident when I was working at another place, dealing with borderlines.
you should finish that, and you should
Yeah.
go with that. Yeah.
Um, but what I was saying was you. I lost my train of thought.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
You can pick this up. The insecurity, and God knows I know about insecurity because I still have a boatload of insecurities, but I have fewer than I used to.
Yes.
And the ones that I have are less extreme than they used to be. Or I can put them. I can catch myself and say, "Stop it,
Yes.
stop it."
You know what they are, and you know how to not let them take
Right.
over or run away with something.
Or at the very least, if it's maybe different for you, at the very least, if I'm feeling that insecurity, I can most of the time. I try to anyway. Stop myself from spewing that onto other people and telling other people that they need to do something for me to make me not feel this way.
Right.
I might be feeling that inside. I might be sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, I wish they would say this. I wish blah 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 blah." But unlike when I was younger,
Right.
I'm not actually going to try to claw that emotional sustenance from friends and or fans.
Well, you
You
realize
know,
it's not their responsibility.
right? You and I realize that one is obnoxious to people when you do. It's not
Yes.
right to demand that of them.
Yes.
That's manipulative.
Correct. Well, and frankly, I remembered what I was going to say.
Okay.
Going back to what I've said to you many times is that um, we love to believe that people are so complicated. How come they behave this way? Why do they make the choices they do? And reality is, we're not that complicated. It is pretty simple why people do what they do. And that's why it goes back to this thing of why did we demand these things? Because we wanted to believe it. we didn't believe it in ourselves.
Yep.
And we wanted someone from the outside to say, no, you matter. You
Right.
are just as good as we are. Believe it. Believe it.
I know.
Click your heels, Dorothy. It's
I know. See, the thing is, if a person has a quality of being unusual, being a minority in the uncontroversial sense, we are, as far as I'm concerned, there's maybe 2% of the population is homosexual.
oh,
I no longer, it's not 1
it's
in 10.
not
It was never 1
10%.
in 10.
No.
There was never 10% of people. I would guess it's between 1 and 2% of the population. I think that's closer to, we're a smaller minority than I wanted to believe most of my
Now
life.
that's different than Gen Z now, who's like 20 or
Yeah, or
30%.
the kids in the Burlington School District, 35% of whom say they're LGBTQ plus, right?
Which is
So
different than gay.
we're a small minority. When you are a minority who has a characteristic that is shared by only 1 or 2% of the population, that's just the way it is. You are the odd man out. You are the odd woman out.
Yes.
That's reality.
Yes.
People are going to know that about you. They are going
Yes.
to say, you're an odd one. You're the eccentric. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be horrible,
Right.
right? But no, you are not, you're not like most people in that way. And you're never
Correct.
going to be like
Correct.
most people. And therefore, because you are not that kind of thing, you are this kind of thing. People are not going to treat you like that kind of thing. They're going to see you like this kind of thing.
Right.
This is normal,
Right.
right? If we had had instruction or encouragement to approach our growing up that way, say, yeah, you're going to be the odd man out,
Hmm.
but you can make a path for yourself in the world, accepting that. If we'd had that route available to us, or if we took it as young people, I think a lot of us would have been better off and less obnoxious and would have grown up more quickly than we did.
Yes. I think that's true. I think that's very true. I often wonder, we've talked about it many times. I had a very positive father
Yep.
figure. I mean, my father was a wonderful man. I was close to him pretty much all my life.
Yep.
Um, uh, and he was very much a man's man.
Yep.
Um, I wonder, I wonder what he would. I, I'm sure he would be fine. I'm sure he would treat me and Clay respectfully. He'd have us in
Yeah.
the
From
house,
everything
everything.
you've said about him,
Yes,
yes.
yes, he's a wonderful person. And he loved me very much. Um, but I, one of the things that he said to my mom, um, that I wasn't supposed to know, this was between me and, between
Yep.
him and my mom told me one day, was that he loved me, um, but he was sad for me
Hmm.
that I would never experience being married and having children and raising a family. And I remember when I first heard that from my mom, I was like, well, what a silly thing to think. I mean, I was really put out
Yeah.
by it. And I told my mom, well, that's just ridiculous. I mean, I'm happy. I'm fine. He doesn't have to be sad for me. I was really offended by
Hmm.
it. And now I see that and I go, well, of course he would feel sad for me
Hmm.
because you know, that's a natural joy in life,
Yes, it
right?
is.
Is to want to get married and have a family.
Hmm.
That's a natural joy and
That's
a
what
natural
animals
thing.
do. This is what our kind
Correct.
of animal does.
Correct. And of course he would feel that way. And I'm not I'm not sad necessarily about it, but yeah, I often wonder what that would have been like for me.
Yeah. Well, I've had those same thoughts too. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm going to be 50 this year, and I'm closer to the end of my life than the beginning, and things look a lot different.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have people. I'm not going to have my own children
Right.
there
Right.
when I'm old,
Right.
and it's not keeping me up at night. But yeah, I do experience it. I do feel a loss of
Yeah.
what could have been,
Yeah, sure.
you know, and unlike what I would have said as a very young man, an insecure young man
Sure.
who had to have a lot of bravado and I'm fabulous and this, that, and the other thing. Um, no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you told me, okay, Josh, I'm going to give you this magic science fiction box and you can turn back the clock. I'm not sure I would have chosen to be gay if I could do it over again. I'm not sure I wouldn't, but I no longer. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. And
And I'm not asking you to feel the same way that I do, but I'm just saying it's no longer. I would have said, "Oh no, this is who I am. This is who I was meant to be." What are you trying to eugenics gays out of existence? I don't have that reaction anymore, so it's no longer clear to me. I'm like, I'm not sure that I would choose to be in a small minority who is, in most practical ways, cut off from the way
yes.
most people mature, have families, age, and go through life.
Well, no one is denying that being homosexual is a thing. It is a thing.
Hmm.
It's but there's a difference between homosexuality exists and homosexuality as an identity
Yep.
exists. And that's really where the change that's where the flip really happened, where it was like, "Oh, I can live this identity as a gay man."
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm using the right words, but I'm hope that I'm getting that across.
Well, but that's what we did, and that's what the generation before us did. The ones in the 60s and 70s.
Yes.
Um, that's your identity. And the problem is, there's a reason why people have stereotypes about gay men, and that reason is that they're true. They're true. The majority, not all, no, not all, but yes, the majority that you see or will ever encounter,
Yes.
the majority are in fact insecure, um, problematic emotions they don't have under control. As a population, our rate of mental illness, childhood trauma, drug addiction is statistically far higher than the background population, and it shows in our behavior. It
Yes.
certainly showed in my behavior, still does sometimes. But you know, and the
I was going to say we left out, and I'm going to use this word on purpose, nihilistically promiscuous.
yes, yes, there's a death wish about
Yes,
it.
absolutely.
There was during the AIDS crisis. I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely.
how many
Yes.
people do you remember? You remember how scary it was. The very idea of having certain kinds of sex was really anxiety provoking in the
Yes.
late 80s and early to mid 90s when you're a little bit younger than me, so I had a couple years head start on you.
Well, I'm
Um,
about 10 years. Go on.
Let me turn off your Instagram filter.
I turn into the general who's in charge of health at the federal level. Who's that? Rachel.
Rachel
Rachel
Levine.
Levine.
You mean Peter Griffin? Let's okay. We've been going for like 48 minutes now. Kevin is probably sitting there. When are these homos going to stop so I can just cut this and stick the tag on the end of it?
Right.
Let's actually do a little news update. Um, thank you, audience, for bearing with us as we do this very informal little conversation. It's just the way it is. Baby needed a vacation. I could not write a show. Let's talk about Nex Benedict.
Oh, yeah.
So, as many of you probably
I
know,
like to put a T on it. Next.
next!
Exactly. Sorry, too soon.
Not soon enough.
Right.
As many of you probably know, this 16-year-old girl from Oklahoma, who all the trans activists, we covered this on the show, was it last week or the week before? with their ridiculous, she was killed by non-binary phobia. Those girls beat the shit out of her. She was killed and, blah, blah, blah. They tried to Matthew Shepard her, and Matthew Shepard, of course, was not killed for being gay. He was beat up in a drug bust gone wrong with the drug dealer that he was screwing. I mean, just talk about a total lie. And yes, I do blame his parents, and I blame
Oh,
them for how they have narcissistically aggrandized themselves by lying for decades. It's a disgusting display.
that lush.
His mother,
Yes.
mm, yeah. Don't be started about mothers.
Hold on, hold on. I'm taking a drink since you.
I know. Um,
Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt. We might have to cut this
why?
because Clay is sitting out in his car
Why is he doing that?
because we're on film.
What an idiot! He should just come in.
Should we let him come in and then we can pick up?
Well, you can tell him to come in. But don't worry about it. He doesn't want to be seen on camera. This is George's husband. So, all right. Anyway, so what happens with Nex Benedict? There is apparently the toxicology report came back, and the she died of a drug overdose, and I believe that they ruled it suicide.
Yes.
Um, Now here's the things that are surprising. There's a couple things surprising to me. The drugs she overdosed on were Prozac and
Yes.
Benadryl.
Yes.
Okay.
I
So,
knew it was.
okay,
I knew it was
fluoxetine, diphenhydramine. This is Prozac and Benadryl.
correct.
That's literally what it is, an antihistamine, cold medicine, and an antidepressant. I'm actually surprised to learn, I don't know how much she took.
Well, I was going to say I didn't know that you could overdose on that.
Right. I mean, like diphenhydramine by itself, I mean, yeah, if you take too much of it, you'll get sick, you'll be exhausted and sleepy. But it's not one
Yeah,
of those things that's like extraordinarily, it's not like fentanyl,
no, you're not
or
like
a barbiturate or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
It's not chloral hydrate, for
No,
Christ's sake.
no.
And Prozac, I mean, yeah,
It's not like
not good
taking.
for you,
It's not
but
taking a
it's,
bunch of oxycodone.
yeah, you're not taking hard narcotic downers.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much she took or what might have been. So at any rate, that's surprising to me. I'd like to know more about the chemistry of that. But you see the religion. You see how this is treated as a religion because the narrative has already shifted. First, it was they beat the shit out of her. They threw her head on the floor. She blacked out. She has traumatic brain injury and she died from that, right? Now that's not the case. Now all these same people, she was driven to suicide by the hate and by the lawmakers who are, making trans kids feel unwelcome. It doesn't matter.
And of course she was driven there. She didn't have her license yet.
Zoomer and stuff. Oh, is she Zoomer or Generation Alpha or
I
whatever they're
don't know,
called? They don't want their
whatever.
licenses anymore.
Exactly. Which is why she was driven there.
Waka waka waka. I know. These people are soulless. They are disgusting. They don't care about the things that they claim to care about. They don't care about her.
No.
They don't care
No.
about kids like her.
No.
Um, they will change their narrative on a dime. They are going to have trans Floyd, as James Lindsay would say.
Yes.
They want trans Floyd.
Correct.
They're going to have their Joan of Arc. They're going to have
Yes.
their trans Floyd, their non-binary martyr.
And
That's
they're
all they care about.
and all they're doing is just ginning it. They're ginning every one of these situations up as much as possible in hopes to have their trans Floyd.
Yep.
They're looking for it. They are as you said, they're changing the narrative on a dime any way they can in order to try to create this. And if it's not going to be with this one, the next thing that it comes around, that'll be the next one that they try it on.
Yep.
And they're going to keep doing it until something happens.
Yep.
And hopefully nothing happens.
Well,
Hopefully
things are going to happen.
but this is the sad thing about this whole situation is that regardless of regardless of this of what led to it, a child is dead.
Yep.
A child is dead.
Yeah, she killed
Who
herself.
needed help.
Well, here's the thing. We don't know very much at all
We
about
don't.
her. We don't know nothing about her home life.
True.
We only know a real little bit about her school life.
We know she was a bully.
She was a bully, right? But a lot of kids
Yes.
are. A lot
Yes.
of kids bully and
Sure.
get bullied. You
Sure.
know, it doesn't mean she was a
Yeah.
horrible
It all
person.
goes around.
She's
Sure.
16 years old,
Yep.
right? And she's caught up in this crazy world that 16-year-olds are in right now.
Well, now a 16-year-old world now
Is
is like
insane.
yeah, way
Yeah, I mean,
worse
it
than the
was
way.
hard enough for
Yeah.
us,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you know, what's most likely? I mean, I can only speculate, but she didn't she didn't kill herself because she got into that fight the day before. That's whatever's going on with her that pushed her to that brink has roots that go back years. And we should be looking at what was going on in the home,
Yes.
not what was going on at school.
No.
This stuff does not come, for the most part, does not come from what's going on at school. School can be really terrible for some kids, but I know as a gay kid who came out early and got pushed around and beat up and mocked at school, I know how terrified I was, but I also know how much I exaggerated how hard it was because I was such a fraidy cat. I was so insecure.
No, I
I
get
could have
it.
handled what I got way better than I handled it. There are kids who have been through far worse than what I went through in school, you know.
Yeah.
So, but what was going on at home, of course, was an actual nightmare, you know. And
Yeah.
if you've got a kid like this who's going around and being non-binary and has I don't know. I don't want to get too detailed, but just looking at that cop video where she was in the hospital, and I don't know if that was her mother or her grandmother, but I'm getting ping, 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 ping. This family's not right. You know, there's some dysfunction going on in this family.
Well, there has to be if she's showing if she's running around telling everyone she's non-binary.
Right.
Like
And I know there are probably some parents listening or watching this right now who get really upset, who would be upset to hear you say that.
I get it.
And I do know
It's not
there
always the
are bigger
case.
forces arrayed against parents today than there ever have been before.
Yes.
The pressure coming from schools and guidance counselors and all this stuff is extraordinary. However, I also know because I do read some of the watering holes online where these parents gather and they tell their stories. I also know from reading their stories in their own words that they made a lot of this happen and they still don't know they did. You know, they go in and they talk about their progressive parenting and, we made sure that all of our kids got a boy toy and a girl toy or that they were all gender neutral and that we didn't use sexist language. I mean, I'm sorry, but between that and the kids who are coming from actually abusive families with the cluster B stuff going on, you know,
Well, and who's to say what's the right mix, right?
yeah,
And I hope that nobody watching this takes offense at what I said earlier
somebody
because,
will.
well, oh well.
Yep.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yep.
Supply your own not alls.
Exactly. Thank you.
You know. Um, but I think who knows what the mix is, and maybe it's different from person to person.
Yep.
But we know from the indoctrination that's going on in our schools, from therapists, from because and we live in
Doctor's offices, everything.
yes, everywhere. Everything is captured. You know,
The public library will do it.
oh yes, absolutely. There's so much going on. I realize that parents are in a real pickle because what do you do? Who do you turn to?
Got to be, well, you have very few people to turn to, but you got to be, a lot of them, I think, needed to have been harder about some things than they were. And I know that they were scared and nervous. And how do you tell somebody to be harder? How do you tell a parent to be harder and say no to the pronouns, no to the I mean, no to the cross dressing. No, my son Jake, you're not going to go to school in a princess dress. How do you say that to parents who are worried that if they are seen by any other adults not to be supportive, that Child Protective Services is going to knock on their door?
Yeah.
I get it. You know, they're in a much harder position than they've been in before.
Well, I know I used to argue sometimes with my father back in the day when I didn't understand why my friends got to do things that I didn't get to do. The parties,
Yeah,
things like that, and I remember my father telling me, "I don't care what your friends' parents do. You're my child. I have to speak for you. I'm the one who they're going to talk to when something happens, and that's not going to happen.
right. Well, there
Let's
you
get a
go.
little bit more of that."
Yeah, we can hope. All right, we have been going for an hour.
Yes.
Thank you for making a fake show with me.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And thanks everybody for watching and listening. Um, I do want to ask you for your support, as we always do, as we take the show out. If you like what you get on here, we don't have advertisers, we don't have sponsors, we only have you, and we appreciate you. If you want to give us some support, there's a couple ways to do it. If you want to just do a one-off, you don't want to subscribe every month, you've got subscription fatigue. I absolutely get it. You can donate, you can give us some support for the show. You can give $1, $2, $5, $10, $30. Go to disaffected.com and click on support. It's right there. One click, it'll take you to PayPal. Do whatever you like with that. If you do want to help us on a more sustained basis, there's a couple of ways to do it. The best way, I think, is to subscribe to our Substack, disaffectedpod.substack.com, and you get a lot of writing there that you won't see otherwise. Or you can join us through Subscribestar at subscribestar.com/disaffected. And maybe we will try to come back to you later in the week with an autopsy because we're going to see Madonna this week. And it's probably going to be a goodbye, at least for me. This will be the last time.
Granny Madonna.
Granny Madonna. We'll try and come back and give you a little autopsy on the show after we see it. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.